In 1518, Strasbourg was a city in crisis, its cobbled streets echoing with uncertainty and fear. Failed harvests had devastated the region, leaving the people starving. Bread, once a daily staple, became a rare luxury that only a fortunate few could afford. Famine was only part of the misery. Deadly diseases like smallpox and leprosy swept through the crowded streets, claiming lives and spreading terror among the townsfolk. The city's poor grew desperate, forced to watch as wealthy nobles and powerful church leaders remained untouched in their comfort, sheltered from the suffering all around them. Fear and superstition filled the air. Every misfortune, every illness, was seen as a sign of God's anger or a curse upon the city. The city was deeply divided, with resentment simmering between the struggling poor and the privileged elite. Tensions grew with each passing day. People felt powerless, trapped by poverty and ruled by indifferent leaders who offered little hope or relief. Prayers for miracles went unanswered. Dread and uncertainty ruled daily life as families huddled together in the darkness, hoping for salvation. By the summer of 1518, Strasbourg was a city on its knees, exhausted and broken, waiting desperately for something, anything, to change their fate. The ground was fertile for something extraordinary to take root, as the city teetered on the edge of despair. No one could have predicted what would come next, or how it would shake Strasbourg to its core. The city was about to witness one of the strangest and most mysterious events in all of history. The stage was set for a bizarre and terrifying chapter, one that would be remembered for centuries. Strasbourg was ready for a sign, and soon it would come in the most unexpected and astonishing way imaginable. On a sweltering July day in 1518, in the bustling city of Strasbourg, Frau Troffea stepped into the street and began to dance. It was sudden, unexpected, and utterly bewildering to anyone who happened to witness it. There was no music, no festival, just her, moving in a wild, uncontrollable rhythm that seemed to come from somewhere deep within her soul. Her face was blank, her eyes distant, as if she was trapped in a world only she could see, unreachable by those around her. Neighbors watched in shock and growing concern as she danced through the day and into the night, ignoring her husband's desperate pleas to stop and rest. By morning she was still dancing, her feet raw and bleeding, her body pushed far beyond its limits. Word spread quickly, people gathered, drawn by curiosity, fear, and a sense of helplessness at the strange spectacle unfolding before them. Was she possessed? Cursed? Afflicted by some unknown malady? No one knew, and speculation ran wild. Her movements were frantic, desperate, as if she was fleeing an invisible tormentor that only she could sense. Days passed and still she danced, a solitary figure in a city gripped by anxiety and confusion. Her ordeal became the talk of Strasbourg, igniting rumors, panic, and a sense of dread that spread through the community. The authorities were baffled and alarmed, unsure how to respond to this bizarre and unprecedented event. This was no longer a private tragedy, it had become a public crisis, one that threatened to unravel the city's fragile sense of order. They had no idea how to help her, or what was driving her relentless, exhausting dance. Doctors, priests, and townsfolk alike were left grasping for answers. But soon, Frau Troffea would not be alone. Others, too, would find themselves compelled to dance, as if caught in the grip of a mysterious force. Her strange compulsion was about to spread, turning a personal ordeal into a city-wide phenomenon. Strasbourg's nightmare was just beginning, and no one could predict how far the madness would go. Within days, others joined Frau Troffea. What began as a solitary, bewildering spectacle quickly became a magnet for the curious and the concerned. A neighbor, a stranger, one by one, people dropped what they were doing and began to dance. Bakers left their ovens, merchants abandoned their stalls, and children ran from chores, all swept up in the same irresistible compulsion. Faces went blank, bodies jerked and spun in a feverish, uncontrollable rhythm. The dancers' eyes seemed to glaze over, lost to the world around them. The lonely dance became a chaotic group, growing by the hour. The square filled with a tangle of limbs and frantic movement, as if the city itself was possessed. By week's end, over 30 people were caught in the grip of the mania. The numbers climbed relentlessly, and the city's anxiety deepened. The city's squares filled with the sound of shuffling feet and desperate gasps. The air was thick with confusion, fear, and the relentless rhythm of the dance. The authorities and citizens watched in horror as the epidemic spread. No one could explain what was happening, and panic began to take hold. Families tried to restrain loved ones, but the urge to dance was overpowering. Desperate parents clung to children, spouses pleaded with partners, but the compulsion was too strong. The dancers broke free, rejoining the frenzied crowd, eyes wild with terror and ecstasy. It was as if they were driven by a force beyond human understanding. By August, hundreds were dancing. Some reports claimed up to 400. The city's population was swept up in a wave of uncontrollable movement. Normal life ground to a halt. The city was paralyzed by fear and confusion. Shops closed, markets emptied, and daily routines vanished as the plague took hold. The dancing plague had turned Strasbourg into a stage for a living nightmare. Day and night the city echoed with the relentless sound of feet and cries for help. No one was safe from the strange contagion. Young and old, rich and poor, all were vulnerable to its mysterious grip. The city was helpless, gripped by a force it could not understand. Every attempt to intervene failed, leaving Strasbourg at the mercy of the inexplicable. Strasbourg's crisis had become a full-blown disaster, a haunting chapter in history that no one could have foreseen. The dancers' ordeal was pure torment. This was no joyful celebration. It was agony. They danced for days, sometimes weeks, unable to stop. Feet became swollen and bloody, bodies collapsed from exhaustion. Yet after brief restless sleep they rose and danced again. Many suffered dehydration and starvation, unable to eat or drink. Some cried out for help, but their bodies refused to obey. Onlookers watched as people died from heart attacks, strokes, or sheer exhaustion. The summer heat only added to their misery. The dancers were prisoners in their own bodies, forced to move until they dropped. It was a public spectacle of suffering, a dance of death. The list of victims grew daily. Strasbourg was witnessing a slow-motion disaster with no end in sight. The city's leaders were desperate for answers. Doctors dismissed supernatural causes, blaming hot blood in the brain. Their prescription? Let the dancers dance it out. The council cleared public spaces and built a stage in the grain market. Musicians were hired to play day and night, hoping music would cure the afflicted. Instead, the spectacle drew more people in, fueling the mania. The music energized the dancers, pushing them to even greater extremes. The city's attempt at a cure only made things worse. As the death toll rose, the authorities realized their mistake. The music stopped, the stage was dismantled. The city turned to religion, believing the plague was a punishment from a saint. All music and public dancing were banned. The council urged prayer and penitence, hoping for divine intervention. Strasbourg's well-intentioned efforts had backfired, deepening the crisis. The city was left searching for answers and salvation. The dance had become a tragedy no one could stop. We know of the dancing plague thanks to those who recorded it. Physicians like Paracelsus, city chroniclers, and church sermons all documented the chaos. Paracelsus claimed Frau Troffea's dance began as defiance, but soon became real mania. Chroniclers described the city's fear and confusion in stark detail. Priests warned of God's wrath, urging repentance to avoid joining the dance. In markets and taverns, rumors spread faster than the plague itself. People whispered about curses, saints, and neighbors suddenly seized by the urge to dance. City records show the council's desperate measures, hiring musicians, then banning music. These documents reveal a government in crisis, grasping for solutions. The dancing plague was no myth. It was a deadly emergency, witnessed and recorded by many. The fear and confusion of that summer echo through the centuries. Strasbourg's ordeal was real, and its legacy endures. The city's struggle is preserved in the words of those who lived it. For centuries, people blamed the dancing plague on supernatural forces. Many believed it was a curse from Saint Vitus, punishing sinners with uncontrollable dancing. The city leaders took dancers to a shrine, hoping prayer would break the spell. Others suspected poison. Ergot fungus in rye bread, causing spasms and hallucinations. But ergotism doesn't fully explain the coordinated, relentless dancing. Today, most historians see it as mass psychogenic illness, mass hysteria triggered by extreme stress. Strasbourg's people were starving, anxious, and deeply superstitious. Frau Troffea's breakdown may have acted as a catalyst in this tense environment. The dancing was a physical expression of collective mental anguish. The city's cure only reinforced the belief, spreading the mania further. The dancing plague was born from misery, fear, and the power of belief. It remains a haunting example of the mind's influence over the body. The dancing plague of 1518 still fascinates us today. Writers, artists, and musicians draw inspiration from its mystery and horror. Novels and films imagine what it was like to live through such chaos. Bands like Florence and the Machine have written songs about the event. The story captures the tension between ecstasy and terror, control and chaos. It reminds us how fragile our sense of control can be. Even in modern times, we're vulnerable to forces we don't fully understand. The Dancing Plague is a powerful metaphor for collective fear and the unknown. Its echoes still haunt us, a chilling reminder of the mind's power. Strasbourg's deadly dance remains one of history's most enduring mysteries.